The biggest deal nobody's talking about here. Mayorkas, is he actually going to be impeached? We have that. Adam Coleman, great show tonight on I'm Right. You know what we like talking about on this show? Things that are important that go by people. Not you, I'm not worried about you. But what happens is this, you have all these news organizations, all these different shows, there are 8 million options out there, podcasts, TV, everything you want. But it's wild if you ever take a step back and take in a bunch of them, at least a small sampling in a given day, they're all kind of talking about the same things. They all pick the top 3 or 4 headlines that the mainstream media is talking about, and that's what they talk about that night. You know, if you watch this show, we don't do that. Sometimes we talk about the big story of the day. Oftentimes we talk about other things. There's something that has always bothered me. It bothers me now. It used to bother me. It will bother me hopefully forever in the future. And this is what it is. The coldness of the leaders of this nation to the sufferings of normal people. You saw this big time during COVID. Just go home. I'll close your business. It's just 2 weeks without a paycheck. Normal people having to live paycheck to paycheck can't do that. But so cold, didn't care about them. The national debt is one of those things it's hard to make people care about unless they're aware of really what it means. So I'm going to make this as simple as humanly possible, not for you, so you can carry this to your normie friends, your normie neighbors who don't quite get it. Do you understand why the costs of everything in your life have gone up? Do you understand why you're poorer today than you were 2 or 3 years ago? Why the cost of burger is $6 a pound, eggs, fuel, heating your home. It's cold out right now. Why are you all sticker shocked? Why are we sticker shocked? Oh my gosh. Why has everything gotten more expensive? Everything has gotten more expensive because of government spending and debt. Period. End of story. Tell your friend Norm, tell your Norma neighbor, everything in your life is more expensive because of government spending and debt. So the next time you're at a party, maybe it'll be this weekend, woo, the football game's on, and your neighbor says, oh my gosh, I went to the grocery store, it's $300. Don't let it go. Tell them, yeah, that's government spending and debt. People have divorced those two things when they are one. The national debt just hit $34 trillion. Now, that's a number too big to, what are you supposed to do with that, right? It's a gigantic number. What are you supposed to do with that? Well, let me explain something. It was $33 trillion 3 months ago. That means in 3 months, we've added an extra trillion on the debt. Now, again, these numbers are so huge. So what does that mean in your life? Here's what it means. Everything is not only more expensive, it will continue to get that way. The costs of the things in your life will continue to go up as the national debt goes up. And that's just the bottom line. And these people, Republicans and Democrats alike, they either don't care or they're happy about the fact you're poorer. That's the case with a lot of communists. The Republicans generally don't care. The communists are thrilled about it, but either way, it doesn't matter. Republicans get into office and they sign trillion-dollar bill after trillion-dollar bill, and there go the costs in your life. And then Democrats get into office and they sign trillion-dollar bill after trillion-dollar bill, and then the costs go up in your life. Joe Biden added $740 billion in regulations alone in 2023. And again, we have to make this connection, you and I, for normal people who don't understand it. When Joe Biden gets up and signs some executive order that says, no matter what, all your light bulbs have to be made from cockroach farts from now on, boom, whoop, signs it into law, the cost of things in your life just went up because of that regulation. 600 million of that alone is environmental justice. So the next time you see some eye-rolling ad on television about climate change this and protect Mother Earth that, make sure you tell your normie and Norma neighbor that that's the reason everything in their life is more expensive today. Now, I did misspeak a couple minutes ago. It was about 3 or 4 minutes ago when I said, you're poorer than you were 2 or 3 years ago. I misspoke because I understand there are senators and congressmen who watch this show. And depending on the senator or congressman, you actually might be a lot richer. We know this because we just got the results. What results? Well, an analysis, if you will, on how Democrats and Republicans did in the stock market. You know, while you were busy losing everything? Yeah, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Dan Crenshaw, Democrat Brian Higgins made a 239% return on the top of the list. Over and over and over again, while you suffer, while you cry in the grocery store, while you cancel vacation plans, these people take bills and regulations they know are coming, that you don't know are coming, and they trade stocks, or their wife does, or their brother's, sister's, dog's uncle does, and they sit there and have money pouring in while normal people suffer. Honestly, everything reminds me of COVID all over again. These people, it reminds me of when they had the congressional gym open, out there pumping iron, woohoo, let's do some Pilates, while your gym got closed and your business got shut down. Everything these people do disgusts me. And of course they insider trade on this. Of course they do. It's what they do. And the amount of suffering taking place that these people don't care about. And I want to specifically focus on Republicans for a moment. Let's talk about the January 6th political prisoners. You know, it's a popular subject on this show. People will email me, Jesse, why do you care so much? Why do you talk about these people so much? Because I've been talking about them since they went to prison. I didn't just start as soon as someone started running for office again. We've been caring about these people for a long time before that. Why? Because they're regular people who have had their lives destroyed. They're not, I mean, for us, they can turn into names on your phone, headlines you see maybe once in a while. These are real flesh and blood human beings. 450 of them sentenced to a combined 847 years in prison. As you sit here right now, as you watch me right now, unless you're one of those people, we do have people who watch from prison and we salute you if you were there. But as you watch me right now, so there's somebody, he's not having dinner with his wife. He's not talking to his kids. Hey, how was school today? Get that math grade up. He's sitting in federal prison, and you can hardly find a Republican to bring these people up. And you know what maybe even makes me more upset? Is that the number of Republicans who have brought these people up since they started running for office again has grown exponentially. But back when these people were suffering and being abused, there were like 5 Republicans in the entire country who even bothered to give them a voice. And now we have this story about Ray Epps, just more corruption right in your face. Ray Epps, you remember Ray Epps. Keep in mind, there are people doing 2+ decades in federal prison who never entered the Capitol grounds. This was Ray Epps on January 6th.
We need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. Peacefully. Fed. Peacefully. Okay, folks, spread the word. As soon as the president's done speaking, we go to the Capitol. The Capitol's this direction.
Wasn't charged with anything, even was taken off the FBI's most wanted list. He was given puff pieces in the New York Times about how hard things have been for him. But still, the outcry from the right got louder and louder and louder. And you know what the DOJ is doing now? They're recommending Ray Epps gets 6 months in the clink. All this noise, and now they're giving someone who was very clearly involved in some way a little slap on the wrist. And it makes me sick. It makes me sick how normal people suffer under the debt It makes me sick how normal people suffer in prison in this country and how few of the elites care. None of the Democrats care. One or two Republicans care. But you know, everybody has an opinion on Harvard. You know, everyone wants to talk about Harvard and who gives a crap about Harvard. What about normal people and the way those people suffer, huh? All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. So now let's talk about some other things here. The debt, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop going up. No one is even proposing a spending cut. You realize that? Nobody. Not even Republicans. The most far-right Republicans in the House are maybe talking about a reduction in the spending increase. And I know we've all convinced ourselves that we'll just get a Republican elected president next year. They'll slow things down. When have Republicans ever done that? Donald Trump spent more money than Barack Obama. I mean, it's true. Buy gold, silver. This debt is not going to stop going up. It's not. Go to jessekellygold.com, get some gold coins or silver coins in your possession. Act like these people are trying to destroy your dollar because they're acting like they're trying to destroy your dollar. Get it in your retirement account so that doesn't get wiped out. Get some in your physical possession. You don't have to go crazy. You have to be a millionaire. This is for normal people, and it's easy. jessekellygold.com, all right? We'll be back.
This is an attack on multiculturalism and on many of the values that a lot of us hold dear. And in fact, anybody really who is around my age in their 30s who went to any major public university or private university in this country, you know, these are values that are very important. The fact that she's a black woman and the first person who is a black American to lead Harvard only added to their thirst to dethrone her. This is racism as well.
Yeah, of course. Pretty racist. She makes about $900,000 a year still. Joining me now, Adam B. Coleman, the great Adam B. Coleman, founder of Wrong Speak Publishing. Okay, Adam, everyone wants to make this about race or skin color. Everyone wants to make this about fundraising. I just took it as this woman became too much of a headache for a very evil institution, and in order to fade the heat, as the kids say, they dumped her. It's not really more complicated than that. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, you're on point. To be honest with you, this is about protecting the brand. Harvard is a brand. It brings a type of social currency. And by her remaining in power and actually receiving backlash, just like any other corporation, too much negative press affects the bottom line, and it affects the social currency. And for them, they have $1 billion. They have plenty of money, so it's not always about money for them. It's about status, and allowing her to stay in that position and be the symbol of anti-Semitism, whether it's right or wrong from their perspective, is too much of a risk for them to take. And I think she felt the pressure mainly coming from outside, not necessarily coming from the inside. I think she felt more pressure coming from alumni, and especially Jewish alumni, who wanted her out.
Adam, explain this to me. Why should I care about Harvard at all? Shouldn't I want the whole thing to burn down? I don't understand. Honestly, look, I understand it's an elite university and they make our CEOs and they make our senators and presidents, and I understand that. But because they make such crappy ones, shouldn't I just root for failure? I realize that doesn't sound very nice, but I'm not a nice person.
I mean, that's a great question. Why should we care? I think the reason we should care is exactly for the reason that you gave, because whatever products they produce is ultimately the type of result we'll get as regular people who are trying to live our lives. They're producing, right or wrong, and I would actually say, unfortunately, they're producing the leaders of the world, as they would probably put it. Right? So they're producing these people who are going to work their way into controlling society. They have the connections, they have the money, and they have the status to do so, right? And they still have the cachet of being Harvard graduates to bring themselves into that stature. So we should care from a sense of if this is the best that they're producing, God help us.
Adam, regular people, normal people, I would argue middle class, lower middle class, and down, are being just carved up by many things in this country. Illegal immigration, inflation, all these things. Doesn't matter what party, lower middle class and below, you are absolutely getting it right on the chin right now. And both parties suck. Both parties are pulling away from those people and don't seem to care about those people. So where do they end up? In general, the poor will end up going with the big government route. Historically, that's the way they go. So they'll just go Democrat and they'll just say, screw it. Are we going to see something different now? You see a lot of heat towards Democrats in these big cities.
I think immigration is going to be a really big awakening for a lot of people because it's no longer a southern border issue. It's no longer the border states are the only ones complaining about the issue. Now it's coming to cities. It's coming to cities and states around the country. I just got notification a few days ago that they're bringing people into New Jersey, where I live, right? So, and we're not a highly populated city. You know, we're actually a pretty a dense state filled with suburbs. So they're going to go all over the place. And I think it's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to affect jobs in some ways. But it's going to put a lot of pressure on local governments who are, in many cases, inept in the first place. Now they have to come up with ways to manage people, which is the hardest thing to possibly do, especially a large influx of people, which is why even New York City, with all its money and all its tax revenue, is falling apart because it doesn't know how to manage just tens of thousands of people who suddenly show up and have no job, no skills, no understanding of the local language, and they have to take care of them. So this is going to be a really big issue. And to what you're saying, the problem is both parties have no ultimate solution. Both parties are succumbing to some larger force. They're succumbing to some corporate entity. They're succumbing to the large donors who want the status quo, who make money off of illegal immigration, right? So they don't necessarily have a problem with it just yet. So we have a lot of interfering forces.
Adam, let's talk about the urban Democrat. I was actually on vacation recently with this woman, of course, the liberal white woman, the most evil creature on the planet. And I'm stuck at a table with her, and we start talking about Chicago. And she's speaking very lovingly about Chicago. And I love Chicago personally, but the crime, it is really bad there. It's gotten dirty, it's really bad. And so people started coming at her a little bit about the crime. And on my life, Adam, on my life, direct quote, she looks at all of us and says, well, I love BJ, talking about Brandon Johnson. She says, I love BJ. You might get robbed, but you won't get targeted. I am convinced now that there are some of these people, I swear, I know. I'm convinced there are some of these people, Adam, if that woman goes home tonight and she gets assaulted by a gang, that she would still wake up tomorrow and vote Democrat for the rest of her life, that nothing would change her. I am convinced of that.
There are certain people, no matter what you do, they will not budge because budging admits that they're wrong. They're that egotistical. And so for her to acknowledge that, hey, maybe something is up here would mean that her life choice as a voter has been wrong her entire life. And the cognitive dissonance would just overcome her. You know, she wouldn't allow for that to happen. So that's why you're probably correct about this particular person. Someone who would rationalize the level of a mugging as being better or worse, rather than saying being mugged is bad and associating to some sort of reason that you're mugged as being possibly, quite possibly, I don't know, the people you put in power who have control over enforcement, who have control over sentencing. You know, that to me is disturbing. So I'm right there with you.
Adam, why are you so skinny? You've been on this show a whole bunch. You used to be bigger. What happened to you?
I woke up one day and I was just like this. No, I started doing intermittent fasting, watching my diet, exercising, started doing all of that back in April. Especially when I started doing fasting, I rapidly lost a lot of weight. I think it was like somewhere around 40 pounds in 3 months. It was just dropping tremendously. But right now I'm around the 65, 70 pound mark. I put on some weight because I started focusing specifically on building muscle. But yeah, I'm down from, squeezing into an XL to comfortably fitting into a large.
That's got to feel good. What is this intermittent fasting? So I can't eat for 3 or 4 days or something?
I was doing alternate day fasting. So basically, you just skip breakfast. That's the easiest way of putting it. I would make sure that I would go from dinner to lunch and make sure that there was an 18-hour gap at least in between. And some people go a little bit longer depending on the day. You can do a meal a day, go 24 hours. You kind of work yourself up to it. But the benefits of it it's a little bit beyond just weight loss. It's a lot of different natural benefits to it.
How about that? Adam, thank you, my brother. Congratulations to you. You look fantastic. That's friggin' awesome. All right. Let's talk about the border. Alejandro Mayorkas being impeached. Julio Rosas is down actually in Eagle Pass. A bunch of Republicans are going down there today for a photo op. We'll talk to Julio about that next. Before we talk to Julio, let's do this. That timeshare. Yeah, I know you want out of it. Everyone does, eventually. And I'm not dogging on your timeshare. I hope you've had a blast in it. But at some point in time, just stop going for whatever reason. Retire, kids move away, sick of it, whatever. But then they tell you you're not allowed out. That's what they told you, didn't they? Sorry, you signed the contract. You're in it for life. Just call Lone Star Transfer, please. This is a family business that has been helping people for years. Over 18,000 homeowners, timeshare owners, are legally and permanently out of their timeshare because of Lone Star Transfer. They're so confident, it's borderline cocky, they put it in writing. They tell you, we'll get you out, and they give you a time frame. All you have to do is make a phone call. That's it. 844-310-2646, 844-310-2646, or LoneStarTransfer.com. We'll be back.
Our city here in Eagle Pass, we've been getting slammed with 2,000 to 3,000 people a day, and it's just an unfair, unethical situation. What's going on here in Eagle Pass, we feel ignored by the federal government.
Ignored. Oh, if only it were that simple. Joining me now, Julio Rosas, field reporter from the Mostly Peaceful with Julio Rosas Substack. Okay, Julio, he feels ignored, although the federal government is well aware of what's happening at Eagle Pass. He's not being ignored. He's being used.
Sacrifice is more the word that I would use, just because that's the whole reason why this is happening, right? I mean, this isn't being done accidentally. Border crisis is being allowed to happen. I've always said from day one that this is Biden's first self-made crisis, and of course there's multiple other ones, but this is one of the easiest ones that if him and his people in his administration wanted to actually fix, they could actually go ahead and do that, but they don't want to, and they can afford politically to ignore a small Hispanic border town along the border because, they're not servicing the people here in Eagle Pass, Texas, or McAllen, Texas. They're more worried about other localities that actually pay them their their money and their voters. So it is an unfortunate situation, and I've been to Eagle Pass many times. Obviously, I'm back now, but this is it's unsustainable. It's untenable. It's just horrible what's being done to American citizens. But because they're so far removed from the Beltway, they don't matter.
Julio, can you explain for the 99.99% of us who are not currently in Eagle Pass, why is it a problem for the people of Eagle Pass that a bunch of illegals pass through? Obviously, I know it's a problem, but people don't understand what it means for this town. What does it mean? Why is it a big deal?
So one of the main things that has been happening recently has been international bridge closures. Now, the border towns rely on each other on the U.S. and the Mexican side for their economy, for workers, for just regular commerce and trade. And recently, one of the bridges had been completely closed to traffic, and then the other bridge had severely reduced personnel on the American side because all the customs agents had to be reassigned to basically babysit all the illegal immigrants while they were waiting to be processed. So what does that mean? It means that employees who work in the United States, they had a much harder time getting in. Some people couldn't even make it into work on time. There was one man that when we were crossing back from Mexico into the United States, he told us that he was on his way to Chicago for the holidays, and he was in line for 11 hours from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh.
And he was just finally getting into the United States, and of course, then the rest of the way to Chicago. But that's just a small example, and just for the fact that there's just like if we had random people coming into our neighborhoods throughout the night or throughout the day, it's the same thing that's happening here, because it's not just people who want to give themselves up, it's also people who are trying to avoid law enforcement. And so, they go through neighborhoods, they go through ranches, they trespass, they cause all this problem. And then it's also just the ecological disaster. With all these people coming in and they discard their clothing, discard their trash, they're doing it right on the riverbanks. And so it's in this delicate ecosystem, as environmentalists like to say, and then it washes into the water.
Julio, well, I don't know that this is good news at all, but there are 60 Republicans going down there today for a photo op. What are we expecting out of this?
Yeah, I see the bus right now. Actually, they're just up ahead of me. I've been on many of these Republican delegations. I understand their desire to bring attention to it, but as opposed to what was happening in 2021, they're in the majority now, at least in the House. And so, really, the question is: we all know that the border is horrible. We all know Biden is bad, and all this is completely unnecessary. So, what are you going to actually do about it? Well, they just recently announced that they're going to have a first official impeachment hearing on the House Homeland Security side later this month. But the issue isn't necessarily the hearings. The issue is whether or not Speaker Mike Johnson, who is here today, whether or not he's actually going to be able to get the Republican caucus to actually vote for impeachment, because there's already been attempts, and I think there was something like 20 Republicans voting against it, which obviously brings a lot of question as to why. So maybe those 20 need to hear all the details with what these impeachment hearings will actually kind of divulge. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see if this is just another kind of field trip for Republicans, or if there's going to be actual follow through. It is an election year, so who knows? Maybe.
Mayorkas, what's he done to deserve impeachment specifically? Obviously, I don't need any help hating Alejandro Mayorkas, but what has he done that warrants impeachment?
Well, it's a simple fact that, you ask Border Patrol agents, and they say that we're not enforcing federal immigration law. And that's the thing. They go around it by going through these policies that they can implement. And basically that they're saying, like, well, they don't have the authority to, for example, to allow all these people in, knowingly that a lot of them don't actually qualify for asylum. And that's why, even today, Mayorkas was saying today that he was saying, the backlog, this historic backlog of cases, is the exact reason why we need immigration reform. And it's like, well, actually, hold on. The reason why we have this backlog is because of the policies that you're pursuing. You made it 10 times worse. And so there's that aspect. And then there's also just the aspect of dereliction of duty when it comes to following through on the Secure Fence Act and what it actually means to have a secure border, policies, as in the statutes. So just on those two things alone, I think Republicans have a strong case to actually, follow through and do the impeachment hearings. But for some reason, like I was saying, there was a sizable chunk in the last round that just thought, no, these current impeachment articles, as they stand, it's not enough to warrant a follow through voting to get him removed from office. And so, yeah.
Julio, we heard that there's a surge. It seems like every other day there's a surge, but there's usually something behind these surges. What's behind the latest one? Why are all these people coming now?
The combination of a few factors. One is that they are well aware that we are now officially in an election year, and they know that there is a possibility that Biden might not stay in office. And so for those who have been waiting and deciding whether or not they actually want to actually go through this arduous process to cross illegally, they're thinking now or never. Also, one of the factors, at least for here in Texas, is that there's that new state law that Governor Abbott signed to say that, okay, local law enforcement can actually arrest people for being here illegally. And that goes into effect in March, assuming that, there's also going to be some legal challenges with that. But so that's another reason why there's a surge. And just a simple fact that people who had friends or family already go through it, and then they've made it to the United States, to their final destination, and they see how they're living their lives with all the free money and all the stuff that they're getting from the sanctuary cities. That alone is a pull factor. And then, of course, when you add in with the immigration debate on Capitol Hill, and as soon as the amnesty is mentioned or insinuated, people clearly want to take advantage of that. So there's a lot of factors this year, and I'm predicting that this is going to be one of the most busiest years compared to the previous times, just simply because people are going to be more incentivized in effort to illegally cross to make sure that they get in under the Biden administration.
Julio, can you explain to me who pays for all these goodies for the illegals? Could you explain to people that? Because the stories are obviously the most mind-boggling things in the world. People from Venezuela have special Venezuelan cuisine prepared for them. We have phones. We have $5,000 Visa cards, hotel rooms. Is it the taxpayer? Who's footing the bill for all this?
A large of it is through taxpayers, and that's either with the services that sanctuary cities provide, or it's through contracts that the federal government gives all these NGOs. Because blue city mayors are solely blaming Governor Abbott's busing program for the reason why, that's why we have all these people here. But really, when you actually look at the numbers, Abbott's busing program is a drop in the bucket, because there's other ways that people are able to leave border towns and get to Chicago or New York or Los Angeles. And that's through NGOs, that's through charities, or it's just simply that they already have friends or family here that give them the money or the tickets or for the airplane to then leave Eagle Pass or Lukesville or Arizona or wherever. So there's just a lot of money being thrown around. And it's kind of what, I don't know if Jesse, I don't know if your drill instructor said this, but when I was going through boot camp, they were saying that the training regimen, as chaotic as it seems, there was a method to the madness. And that's exactly what's happening, not just with this issue, but particularly with this issue, is that there is a method to all this madness that's going on. It's all very coordinated. It's all, again, this isn't by accident. This isn't just like, oh, this is happening to us. No, this is being done to us as a country. And so, unfortunately, taxpayers are putting the bill for a large part of it.
Yeah, Julio, thanks, my man. Stay safe down there. Keep doing what you're doing. Semper Fi. Well, we also have a bunch of Chinese nationals at the border, like a lot of them. Why? Kind of begs that question, doesn't it? What are they doing over here? Natalie Winters is going to join us next and talk about that. Before she does that, you know that you should be a subscriber to The First TV, right? You need to go to thefirsttv.com/support and sign up. Why? Get access to all the specials, man. Everything on demand, all the history specials, no matter what you want on your phone, iPad, TV. Thefirsttv.com/support. We'll be back. Now, with all that illegal immigration talk, I know you're probably saying, well, I'm sure they're vetting some of these people. Oh, yeah, no, very strict vetting. Unless, of course, you're Chinese. You see, the Chinese illegals, our number one geopolitical foe, their vetting process is a little watered down. I can't wait to ask Natalie about that. Joining me now, Natalie Winters, of course, executive editor at War Room, and something we will get to in a little while, founder of She's So Right. I dig that name. Natalie, what are we doing with the Chi-Coms that show up at our border?
Talk about inviting the enemy in with open arms. This news story shows that the Biden regime changed Trump-era restrictions to basically make it easier for members of the Chinese Communist Party or Chinese aliens to enter the United States. There used to be 40 questions that they would ask potential migrants from this country. They watered it down to just 5. Some of the questions that they took off included if they had experience in weapons trainings or dealing with arms, like guns, shooting them. That seems like something you'd want to know about potential migrants entering your country. But they also used to take their data from their phones and cross-reference it against databases that had information relating to known terrorist groups or foreign adversaries, such as the Chinese Communist Party. And they totally scrapped that as well. So now they don't even look at their phones. I think it really speaks to how this immigration crisis, which is too euphemistic a term, frankly, it's intentional, it's by design, it's not a result of incompetence.
Okay, Natalie, why? Now, obviously, you and I could go down this rabbit hole for hours, but it makes no sense that you would make a special carve out for these people, unless, of course, this is underneath an administration that is compromised by China.
Well, look, so many of the staffers within the Biden regime on the immigration front are far left radicals who don't believe in borders, frankly, don't believe in America, right? They ascribe to the mindset that, oh, well, America is an idea. It's not a country. Borders don't mean anything. They're racist. So, of course, they will love this, right? They want to devalue American citizenship. So what better way to do that than by inviting our enemies in? But, you know, a lot of my earlier reporting, I really documented chapter and verse the Chinese Communist Party infiltration in the Biden regime and the conflicts of interest held by basically everyone within the White House, working at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, of course, just being one example of that. But I think it really speaks to sort of the unrestricted warfare tactics that are deployed by the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, the White House doesn't have to be flying a Chinese flag. America doesn't have to be invaded by China yet to be pushing policies that are advantageous to the Chinese Communist Party's broader global goals when it comes to reasserting hegemony or really taking over the United States from within. So I think these are the kind of policies that the Chinese Communist Party gets a very high ROI on in terms of not necessarily installing directly, but sort of by subversively embedding people within the Biden regime who are very, very, very conflicted with the Chinese Communist Party. So they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. Because like you said, Jesse, this is one of the most ridiculous policies that I have seen in my entire life and career as a reporter. There's no way you can justify it. I mean, even from a national security perspective, even if you don't believe in borders, they're quite literally welcoming the enemy in from the Chinese Communist Party.
What's it like being an investigative journalist? You get to like go undercover?
I wish. You know, frankly, the mainstream media makes my job extremely easy for me because they're all bought off by the Chinese Communist Party, so they don't report on any of this stuff. So it's a market niche.
Yeah. All right. Why are we working with some kind of Chi-Com agriculture group as well?
So I predicted, and unfortunately these predictions have come true, that the next kind of incursion that the Chinese Communist Party would make in America would be particularly targeting farmland and food supply. And of course, the Biden regime has really welcomed this assault with open arms. Our ambassador to China, a guy by the name of Nick Burns, who of course used to be a DC-based consultant that worked for companies doing business in China. He said, we need China. We can't view them as the enemy. So in other words, the perfect pick for ambassador to China for Joe Biden. But he was giving the keynote address for a group called the U.S.-China Heartland Association in partnership with the China-United States Exchange Foundation. Now, these might be innocuous, euphemistic-sounding names, but make no mistake, these are groups that are funded and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. They're foreign influence operations that are part of the United Front Work Department, which is a multi-billion-dollar political warfare operation that emanates out of Beijing, and its sole purpose is to get the United States to push policies that are advantageous to the Chinese Communist Party and therefore negative for the United States of America. And frankly, on the agriculture front, that's exactly what you see going on. So it's sort of like the green light, right? When you have Ambassador Nick Burns giving the keynote address for this organization. And frankly, when you have House Republicans putting out legislation and state legislators trying to block Chinese Communist Party purchases of American land, and you see the White House basically giving them carte blanche, right? Saying, oh, we want to collaborate with you on agriculture, even setting up a working group they never previously announced between our Department of Agriculture to collaborate. It really, again, same with the border policy. There's no other way you can reconcile it and make sense of it, besides that this regime is hell-bent on the destruction of the United States of America.
Natalie, who's Prince Andrew? What's he a prince of? He doesn't sound American. Why should I care about this guy?
So this is a funny story. People say I like to link everything to the Chinese Communist Party, and that is true. I take that as a badge of honor, but that's because all of these evil forces that we are up against are interrelated, and they're working towards the same goal. And if you think we're in a spiritual battle too, I'd argue they are all on the side of evil. So people, I'm sure, are aware of Confucius Institutes. These are the Chinese Communist Party propaganda outfits targeting American school children and college students. And funnily enough, or I guess not so funny for the people who are being indoctrinated, Prince Andrew, standing alongside Xi Jinping, of course, Prince Andrew of Epstein fame, actually inaugurated the 1000th Confucius Institute, celebrating their reach into schools. Like I said, I think this story more broadly just speaks to how all of the evil forces that we are up against really collude together, and they are all really on the side of anti-Americanism. And that's why I think they want to see countries, regimes like the Chinese Communist Party really take over and replace the United States, because they do not support the values that we stand for. And they know that I think they can find allies, much like Hunter Biden has, with the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping.
Natalie, tell me about this She's So Right product line here. I've got to hear this. Is there a special like Jesse Kelly area on the website or something?
We can totally do a collab. I would love to do that. But I've spent so much of my career, haranguing the Chinese Communist Party and saying that we need to take down the CCP. And of course, the mantra of the war room is action, action, action. And I got tired of buying clothes that were made in China. And frankly, I think a lot of political apparel, that are made in the United States, are either way too expensive or they're not really flattering for women. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about, the cuts of the t-shirts, right? So I set out to change that. I partnered with factories here in Los Angeles, all made in the United States. I'm partnered with companies that are dedicated to bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States in a sustainable, real way, undercutting the globalist narratives, that Americans won't do these jobs, they won't work in factories, and just a bunch of fun sayings on the shirt. You got a little bit conspiratorial, misinformation, low social credit score, more insecure than the border. That's probably a fitting one. But just some fun sayings so you can wear your values, but they're also not so in your face or offensive to people who don't share your values. So you can still, I always say, go for a hot girl walk with one of your girlfriends and get away with it. But more importantly, you can be stylish and you don't have to buy into not just the globalist economic model of outsourcing, but support the Chinese Communist Party, like I said, that is hell-bent on destroying the United States of America.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of it. It's hard. I've tried this merch thing before. It's hard to find stuff that's sourced in America. I'm glad you did that. She's So Right is the product line. Go check it out. Natalie, congrats to you. I appreciate you very much. All right. Now, we're not finished. Don't cry. It's not quite over yet. Sit tight. We're almost done. All right. It is time to lighten the mood. And there are times where we say things on this show, I know you're going to find this shocking, that people find offensive, but we still say it anyway. But there's always a line. I'm not worried about corporate or anything like that, but there's always a line you don't really want to cross. I saw this, this is from Kansas City. This local news anchor came on and she just issued, this little apology.
I did make a mistake during our Catterday segment. I used a submitted photo of a cat with an inappropriate name. I don't want to use the name here, but I never intended to hurt or offend anyone by using that picture that was actually just given to me. I understand my mistake and I am deeply sorry. And in the future, I will absolutely be more diligent with this content to ensure it never happens again.
Now, you just watched that, and I'm sure you're wondering, what picture? Maybe you're even, I'll tell you what I did. When I first saw the beginning of that video, I rolled my eyes and thought, oh, here we go again. Someone got offended over nothing, probably some feminist. This was the picture.
15 degrees below zero right now, so certainly this is kind of weather for the cats. So we've got our Saturday night forecast for you now, where we are featuring Kittler here, thanks to Debbie Alexander. And I think Kittler kind of looks like
How did that get past the editors? I'll see you tomorrow.